We know by now the Trump regime has fired most of its senior leadership at ICE and has replaced them with senior leadership at Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, which is led by a guy named Gregory Bavino. Gregory Bavino's the guy who's leading the invasion of Chicago against the peaceful residents there. He's actually been photographed himself throwing gas canisters, leading chemical warfare against the people of Chicago. In some of the filings about the chemical warfare against the people of Chicago, the groups that have brought these cases have said basically over the past 20 or so years, Chicago police has never used these chemical weapons once in, I think it was 27 million arrests over the course of over the course of 2.5 or 3 decades or stops. Never once did they have to use this. And already on a daily basis, Customs and Border Patrol, and some people don't realize there's a distinction between ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, and they're having a little turf war now as well. But the Customs and Border Patrol just going in there to peaceful communities, throwing gas at people. And we've heard these horrible stories of pregnant women choking, worried about birth defects, these gas canisters being used next to elementary schools. We've heard a horrible story about during a Halloween party, CBP raiding the Halloween party, beating people, almost killing people at just festive gatherings right now. So there was a major hearing with Greg Bavino that took place before federal Judge Ellis. And Judge Ellis wanted to hear from Bavino directly about what he was doing. Now, Bavino's been ordered to testify under oath in these cases for at least 5, maybe up to 7 hours at this point. It keeps on increasing as he engages in these tactics. And there were some, I think, important revelations that were made at this hearing. We'll talk more about what the ruling's ultimately going to be as the judge considers more remedies. But one thing that the judge has ordered is that every day Bavino needs to show up before her. At 4:30 p.m., he's been ordered, you have to show up every day and let me know everything you've done every day. Also, Judge Ellis asked Bavino, where's your body cam? Has it been turned on? And Bavino admitted that he's not using a body cam. And she said, well, I ordered you to use a body cam. I want it turned on. I want to know what you're doing at each and every interaction. So he violated the order there. Judge Ellis then went through all of these other violations of her injunction, preventing the use of force as it was done at the Halloween party in Lakeview and Little Village and so many other areas in Chicago and in the surrounding areas. And Bavino would basically answer very coyly, I don't know the specific incident, I'm not sure, but we will do our best to follow your order. I'm not specifically sure what you're saying here. And the judge would say, is there any specific examples where you would need to kneel on people's necks to suffocate them? Well, there may be sometimes, but I don't know the specific incident that you're talking about. So he tried to play that shtick. The judge clearly saw what he was doing. She's getting ready to rule on her permanent injunction and getting ready to rule on the potential injunction banning the use of these chemical weapons. Totally. I mean, just think about the current ways they're being used on these communities. And then let me just show you what it looked like when Bavino left the courtroom. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but it looks like the bad guy in any movie that you've seen, like literally the villain, with all of the masked secret police surrounding him. I mean, this guy's a total clown, and he's, now out there, weakness masquerading as strength, threatening people, throwing gas in people's faces. This was the guy who, when Governor Newsom was announcing Prop 50, and also talking about what ICE and CBP were doing, he was the one who did the raids right outside where Newsom was speaking to try to intimidate people at that event. But I want to show you this clip. This is from our friends at Status Coup News. They've got their own Substack as well. They put reporters on the ground, and I like to work with, at the MeidasTouch Network, groups like Status Coup News. We work with Migrant Insider and others, but Status Coup News we're starting to work with. They've got actual reporters on the ground. They give us the footage to be able to share with you. And by the way, it costs them a lot of money to get this live reporting like that. So support their Substack, of course, if you can. They're called Status Coup News. Let me show you right here. This is the footage that they gave us at the MeidasTouch Network that they took of Bovino leaving the court. Play this clip.
Yep, that's Greg Bovino is coming out the door right now. That's him without the helmet on.
Shame on every single one of you! Bovino, fuck you, bitch! Shame on you! These motherfuckers are for the FBI agent! These motherfuckers are the same ones that were in fucking Roscoe and Squad 3! Shame on you!
If you saw the CBP agent kind of being physical and pushing some of the reporters aside right there. Wild footage that they brought us at Status Coup. Great work. Let me bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast and Substack. Harry, Judge Ellis isn't messing around, ordering Bovino every day show up. She knows what's going on. I don't even know how I could articulate that there's chemical warfare going on against American citizens and people living in this country.
Against an order she already entered. She's not messing around, but she actually was a little bit nuanced with this lunkhead. He swaggered in. I was actually thinking of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. He comes in full regalia, chest first, just dripping, arrogant swagger, and he takes the stand. You're exactly right on his overall strategy. Anytime she served up incidents, and she wasn't just, making up hypotheticals, she was taking them from what's happened in, Illinois and Chicago in the last few days. We've seen many of them, including Bovino himself. Throwing the tear gas, as you say, and then reaching for another. That's also in the footage. And look, she's already entered the order, and the order says you can't use this. And she entered it because they have been doing it repeatedly. You cannot do this kind of stuff. No tear gas, etc., unless there is a proviso that, if there's a riot or they're under real assault or siege, that's one thing. And you saw a pretty raucous crowd. Of course, they're raucous because they've been invaded by federal troops that are not needed and are just part of political propaganda, and they don't want anywhere near there. But, viewers should understand, because it is rough and tumble out there, but that's total First Amendment protected speech, unless people that do enter into or cross the line into violence. And you've had many episodes in which these guys under Bovino's command are arguing that that's happened, and it turns out that maybe not, and maybe it's just a lie. So she'd already entered the order, and here comes Bovino swaggering in, and she gave him ground. She never said, "Really? Are you telling me that there's some way in which it could be okay to, whatever it is?" And he repeatedly said, well, it's a situation I'd have to evaluate but she didn't press him to the wall because she knew she didn't need to. And in fact, it was sort of a two-part kind of drama here. He goes in his tough guy stance and regalia, but when she presses him, what he gives up right away is, okay, can't tell you about this situation, but we're going to be complying with the TRO. So, if in the future there's more tear gas thrown, then it falls to her to, people come in and here's the testimony. And then, they've already doubled down. She entered the order and they've now affirmed they're going to be complying with the order, and it's her order. She's now, in charge, as you say. And she, got him around to basically represent that, meaning next time it happens, he's, really in a vise. So didn't fight the wars about, were you under siege or not there? The plaintiffs all say, by the way, they've got complaints about, the excessive use of force, and they lay it all out. If push came to shove, there'd actually be testimony on both sides. But what she said for now is, you better damn adhere to and comply with my order. And her order says you can't do any of this stuff, unless you are, it's really necessary for self-protection and the like. So and that's what they always claim, but we'll see if it goes through again. So even as, he, to me, does the Jack Nicholson imitation, the U.S., we've seen in other instances where they're pushing back harder on judges. Not so here. They basically said, and she got him to say, we're going to be complying with the TRO, setting the stage for real trouble if they continue to make mischief in the absence of, unpeaceful conduct. And that doesn't include is the better way to put it, raucous, screaming, profane. That's First Amendment stuff. It's only if you cross the line over to violence, and the widespread reports are that's just not happening.
I just watch these images every day of what it looks like in Chicago and in some cities and towns in California, and frankly, places throughout this country. And I just think, wow, I just can't believe this is the United States of America, where the Trump regime has intentionally turned peaceful, thriving areas into war zones to create the pretext for invasions by National Guard troops in order to further fulfill his goal of destroying blue states and basically staying as an authoritarian and getting rid of midterms. And to me, all of this conduct is geared towards
peace, right? Yeah, I feel that I'm scared of that too, Ben. And look, if you want these riots to go away, just stop invading. It's the reaction to their coming in that has done it all. And I'll just add one point to what you said. It's everything you said, plus the big bounty when they come in and endanger and rile everybody up. Half a dozen people whose papers aren't in order, right? None of these terrible murderers eating pets and the like that Trump said was the purpose for these massive operations.
And where I think we're seeing, it's both horrible news and good news at the same time, is I think Trump thought with his intimidation, with the threats, that would be enough to force people to submit. But when people didn't submit based on the psychological fear he wanted to instill, he's ramping it up and seeing how far he can get away with, because people don't want a dictator here. And he thought the fear could get them to submit the same way MAGA Republicans have, and the same way lots of corporations have. The people haven't done that. And that is part of, throw the CBP, throw these people like Bavino in there and get them to literally do violence on Americans. because they're not submitting. Force them into submission, which is why we all have to stick together and fight back. And that's what we do.
So
here on
true. I mean, just that's the important one. I'm sure you feel it all the time as I do, what is to be done. And, this happened with the No Kings rally, but here too, there's, when we're getting to the sort of extremes and figuring out what really happens if he gets desperate and ruthless, you just can't overemphasize the importance of just people being already cohesive and together on the ground. In some ways, he's undermining his own tyrannical ambitions because you have people coming together, recognizing how fundamental the stakes are. It's about what kind of country you want to live in, and will we be in a democracy or a tyranny where people just, where self-appointed officers and agents just go in and bust heads, etc. So, that experience of being out there and banding together, I think, sows the seeds of some very effective resistance against Trump's autocratic ambitions.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Just search Talking Feds. There's the Talking Feds Substack, the Talking Feds podcast as well. Harry Litman, thanks as always.
Thank you, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe, and let's get to 6 million subscribers here.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.